Welcome to the Startup Grind.
I had tons of experience like in the acting, and I learned a ton about production growing up as a kid in the business. But I think the most valuable thing, like I touched upon it earlier, was probably dealing with that much rejection as a kid, and knowing that like you can't win every time, that you have to just keep trying, and then every now and then things work out. And if you just keep your eyes on the prize. And there are obviously parts that I really wanted to get as a kid, like Poltergeist. I met Steven Spielberg, and I think I tried out for E.T. too. I just can't remember the audition, because sometimes they had cattle calls where it's like 1,000 people are there and you're just waiting all day for your number. It's like American Idol auditions, you know. And I think they had like that was the situation for E.T. But Poltergeist was a little bit more like of a pointed.
You got further
surgical strike with the agencies, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I really wanted that one. I really wanted Never Ending Story. I tried out for all these parts, and I worked with all those guys like the Coreys, Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, River Phoenix, like all the big '80s kids.
You played some role with them.
Yeah, I whether it was like actually working with them on set or like sitting next to them like waiting to go on an audition, like, oh, hey, what's up, River? You know, like we were like audition friends, or because you get called for the same part. Like our coloring is the same. I was blonde when I was younger, and you know, we need a 7-year-old white kid to do, you know, and I'd end up with all the 7-year-old white kids, and you know what I mean. Yeah. It depended on the role, but.
So how many? I mean, over that time, if you were to estimate how many auditions you did, what would you put it? Would it be?
I would say on an average, sometimes there'd be 7 auditions in a day.
Wow.
And this is after school between the hours of 3 and 7 at night.
Wow.
And you're bouncing from the west side to the east side to like downtown to, you know, all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, that's more of the rare ones, but I would say on an average 2 or 3 a day.
Monday to Friday.
Monday through Friday. Our agent just had us out there all the time. And, you know, like that's the explosion. The 80s is like consumer explosion. So whether it's like Captain Crunch cereal or Silver Spoons on TV with Ricker Schroeder, it was like that was when sitcoms were hot. That's when like kids advertising, there was like no guard. You know, the FCC didn't have those kind of rules where it was like, because it was everywhere, like kids
selling to kids,
like cereal to kids, and it was like the Wild West as far as like kids on television go. It was like an explosion because you had like the popularity of Leave It to Beaver that leads into, you know, All in the Family and family sitcoms, and then it just became like it was everything, like sitcoms in the 80s and stuff with family entertainment. I mean, it was that's what TV was family entertainment. Really, there wasn't shows that it wasn't so compartmentalized. It was really about family television. It wasn't like, you know, those late night crime dramas, CSI, where they're like, you know, there was nothing like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was Cosby.
And edgy stuff didn't do well back then. It just didn't do well, and you know, gradually that came in. So anyway, that's what I spent most of my time as a youth doing, and learning a lot, like absorbing a lot. And I think most of it was inadvertent, because if I'd had more of a choice in it, I probably wouldn't have done it as a kid. And to my parents' credit, my mom would say to me, I can tell you're not happy. Do you want to keep doing this? And I would say, no way. Mm. And she'd say, okay, well, let's just finish out the auditions today, and you don't ever have to do it again. And then, of course, I'd get a part. Yeah. And then I'd be like, oh, okay, that was pretty awesome. Listen, I'll just keep doing it, and I'd forget about it. No, I'm not doing this anymore, because you just deal with rejection, and then I get something, and it'd be like, all right, that was cool.
So you're doing 2 to 3 on average auditions every day after school, and you're getting how many of those parts? So you're maybe at 10 to 15 a week?
I don't know, like maybe 1 out of 200.
Wow, okay.
If that, maybe. It could probably be even worse like that.
Yeah.
But we did print. I did print ads and voiceovers. Like I was a voice of on Gummy Bears, a cartoon, Disney's Gummy Bears.
You've got a lot of Gummy Bears credits.
Yeah, I was on Gummy Bears. I did, you know, whatever, voiceovers and print, commercials.
Sure.
Just because our agent was just like shotgunning us out, like, and really that's what my parents were our managers, so it was a little bit of that kind of situation too, where my dad was, we're meant to do this, like, and my mom was kind of like, I don't know, like, maybe you should get a job. So that became like the family business.
Yeah, they were fueling it. They were making they were sustaining the family.
And you hear a lot of horror stories about that, and there were. I mean, I was like ground zero, or like on the front lines as far as like horror stories about parents that are like living vicariously through their kids, and that they want to be actors themselves, so they got their kids doing it, and they want to be famous themselves, or they want to party with the celebrities themselves, so they got their kids doing it. Lindsay Lohan, the list goes on and on, but that's just been going on forever, And there's that the Coogan account that they've created after Jackie Coogan. I don't know, the silent movie star Jackie Coogan. He was a kid in the movie The Kid. Well, that's the classic tale. Is his parents like milked all his money and just partied it away, and then when he got older, he had nothing. He was poor. He was homeless for a while, and his parents used all his money. So they created the California state law. It creates an account, but of course, there's always ways to get the money. So.
Sure.
But there's protection about that. But I got to experience that firsthand, and I think that drove a wedge between my parents as well, and gradually it led to my parents breaking up because my mom was like, "This isn't fair to the kids," and my dad was like, "What are you talking about? We're winning. Like the kids are working, and it's happening." Yeah. And it just it led to a breakup, which was that was tough. And so anyway, I'm just going off. So
yeah, no, it's great.
So there's a kind of my
So you're doing this into high school, and then talk to us about kind of finishing or towards the end of high school. You're kind of getting your education on the road on these sets, and then what happened to you after high school and then leading into the Aquabats?
Like going back into high school a little bit, because this also leads. So during this time as well, like the 80s was like a huge, late 70s, early 80s, there's a big explosion, like entertainment explosion. So like with underground music and graffiti and art and skateboarding, and I think during this time, to escape a little bit of like the monotony of things I was in. I mean, I'm in LA, like punk rock is like going crazy.
Off, yeah.
Hip hop is coming around, and it's new and it's fresh and it's exciting, and there's all this like subcultures that you have access to in LA, being a crossroads of the world and the media capital pretty much of the world, I would say. I think in high school I started to like kind of forget about my day job as an actor and as a student and school, and I just kind of chucked my responsibilities because I felt like I was locked into what I was going to do.
Yeah,
I'm in the entertainment industry, whatever, school schmool, and I got really into skateboarding and punk rock and music and hip hop and just like all the cool like undercurrent like subculture stuff.
Sure.
And really explored out. My parents are small town, very conservative, very religious, and so growing up in LA in the film industry, music industry, around kids that are doing like cocaine at like 13 and stuff like that. At my school, like at my junior high school, like the first time I learned, I was probably 13, like at a party, and I'm thinking back now, like all those kids, none of them were 16, and kids are doing coke and like. That's crazy, like.
That seems normal.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, like, well, that's kind of gnarly. And all their parents were like rich producers, and it was kind of a interesting time to grow up. But I think I started focusing more on like becoming a kid and like almost like going against the grain of what we were trying to do as a family, and so that's where I discovered music and I discovered skateboarding and a little bit more of a progressive thinking.
Yeah,
and experiencing other things rather than just what we've been doing my whole life, and so my high school career was really non-existent. I went to Walter Reed Junior High School in the Valley, and then North Hollywood High School for like maybe a half a semester. Cuba Gooding Jr. went to that high school, and what's that guy's name again?
You're looking at me like I know.
You know him.
Could be anybody.
Talk show host that he's grumpy all the time.
Pat Sajak?
No. No, he was on K-Rock, and then he did Loveline, and then...
Adam Carolla?
Adam Carolla.
Adam.
I can't remember, I forgot his name.
I didn't know.
Can't believe I forgot his name. Anyway, so he went to North Hollywood High School, too. And, anyway, so I dropped out of school, and then...
You didn't finish school.
I didn't finish high school, no.
Yeah.
This is right when my parents split up. So when my parents split up, it kind of threw my world into a little bit of a loop. Being so conservative growing up, and my parents being very faith-based and religious. When like they split, and your whole life you're taught that your families are forever, and your family is the core unit, and then it splits up. It's just like, oh well, like I'm gonna go skateboarding, And so I like. Between high school and college age, it's kind of that era is kind of a blur.
Yeah.
And but I found I discovered like what
you discovered who you are.
Yeah,
right?
I discovered like what I was into and what made me happy and what didn't make me happy, and then and I also anyway that's not that important.
No, it's
but
great.
it's just interesting, like. To me, I guess.
Yeah. So you've kind of moved in this different crowd, this music crowd, and talk to us a little bit about when you first started Aquabats, which is now in your early 20s, right?
Okay, so yeah, there's again a couple of important moments. So I had my like in the like. The Quakers or whatever, they go off and have their like, what do they call that? Like
Ground Springer?
Yeah, they go out and like figure out how they want to be, if they want to keep following what their parents have taught them, or if they want to just rage for a while and go to raves and stuff. So, I kind of did my own version of that, and I found out there was a lot of things that were a dead end, and like that was the same time like River Phoenix, a kid I grew up with, OD'd, and Corey Feldman was like addicted to heroin, and like I saw him at Jerry's Deli one night, and he was totally out of his mind. And I don't know if I should say this because this might end up online, but anyway, it wasn't pretty.
He's a huge fan.
It
of
was
ours.
not pretty. Yeah.
We don't want to.
I don't know. I don't want to.
We don't want to lose Corey.
Corey's clean now, so it's good. But kids I had grown up with it, they just went. They went the bad way, and also like gangs were really popular in the valley around that time, and like when Colors came out, and it sparked this kind of like citywide like gang boom, and there was like drive-by shootings at my school, and like that was another reason why I dropped out of high school, because it was a violent place, and
which gang
kids
were you
getting
in?
guns, and
were you in? Did you affiliate with anyone?
Well, I knew some of the punk rock gangs in the valley. There were some punker gangs, but all the LA gangs. It was kind of like a big gang war. It was a big, and that's still prevalent here, but it just seemed like it was a big explosion of that kind of stuff, and it was kind of a dangerous time, and so a lot of those. Like avenues started to close up for me. Like this isn't a good, smart way to go. And like, drugs and gangs and all that. It was there, but I was like, well, this is not a good way to go. Yeah. So, I pulled back, and I got back into the family and kind of started to become more of like the son that my mom expected me to be. And she needed help, and she had 5 kids and no husband, and she was depressed, and that kind of thing. So I came back into the family and discovered that even though families can be dysfunctional, it takes a team to make a team. Like, and if you get someone on your team that's not playing ball, that it affects everybody. And so I started going back to church and hanging with the family. And when I was 19, I made a pivotal decision to go on a mission for my church, and I had been offered like a role on a reoccurring role on this show called Major Dad. It was like Gerald McCraney. I don't know if you know that guy, but it was just a show, and he was like a military sergeant that was married to. Was it Delta Burke was on that show? I can't remember, but anyway, it was a sitcom about a hard-nosed father that's a military, but he's real softy at home. You know, like one of the millions of different sitcom incarnations. Right. And I got offered a role on the show, like a reoccurring role, and I been doing some other stuff, and I was working at a skateboard company at the time too. That was like with Spike Jones and Jason Lee, Mark Gonzalez, like the bigger names in skateboarding. And I knew I'd done Gleaming the Cube with Tony Hawk and all those guys, and so I had a really good network of people in the entertainment industry, also people in action sports, and I was in a good spot. But just something in me said, I want to do something else. So I chose to go on a mission for my church, and I went to Japan. I lived in Sendai, Japan for 2 years, and which is where the earthquake happened. The tsunami and the earthquake, which was hard because I knew a lot of other people, and a lot of those towns I'd lived in that got totally wiped out, which was totally insane. But so I lived in Japan for a couple of years. I learned Japanese, and I learned a different culture, and I learned to look outside myself, kind of forget about me, and help other people. And you know, Japan is not a Christian nation, so they're not looking for God, so to speak. Sure. And so a lot of the things we end up doing as missionaries was just serving people and helping people. Like, how can we help you? Can we paint your house? Can we, you know? And in that way, you hope to start a conversation or whatever. But you know, we'd teach English for free as teachers, and we'd go to like convalescent hospitals and help and clean beds and do stuff, and people were like, you guys are like, you're 19-year-old Americans. What are you doing in the middle of the country in Japan helping old people either, you know, go to the bathroom? And
pretty stark contrast from what you were doing.
Yeah,
here.
Totally.
Yeah.
But again, I think that was another experience that kind of helped shape the like how to be inclusive and understanding other people, like learning empathy and things like that. That you know, as a skateboard wielding teenager, it's like the opposite. You know? Like you're just thinking about partying and going skating and going crazy, and then just wham, like 180 went to wearing a suit and tie and helping people. And
it's really cool.
But that was another like compound with, and this is a reoccurring thing we'll talk about, but compounded the rejection. You know, so I grew up my whole life, you know, winning battles, but majority of the time being rejected. Like, no thanks, beat it. You know, like, how did I do? You know, it wasn't your read. It's just you don't look right or whatever. You know, you're dealing with that your whole life, and then I lived in Japan for 2 years where people were like literally like, get away from me. You know, like, I don't want to talk to you. And you know, not all the time, but you know, you pick your battles, and you cherish your small victories, and that's something in my life now
career,
that it's still a big part of my reality. Like I still feel like for whatever, you know, amount of success that I've come across, it's still about those little victories all along the way, you know. And there's been some really big, good ones. But anyway, so
it's very cool. So, yeah, no, I think you know, my experience specifically with the Aquabats, you know, and as I've kind of like watched you guys from afar for, you know, the better part of 15 years, it was always kind of like, wow, the Aquabats are still around, you know, and like, man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, the first time I saw you guys play was at this. It was one of the first shows I ever went to. It was with Primus and Blink 182.
Yeah.
And like, you know, we were all there. I was there to see Blink, and this was kind of right before they went massive.
Yeah.
And then you guys came on at the beginning, and it was like 15 guys. It was like this army of people.
It was 8.
Well, it felt, yeah, okay.
It feels like 15.
I went to somewhere.
We moved really fast.
I could have sworn there were 15 at some ones I went to. But it was so fun, and it was so different, and it just the experience made you feel so good. and would love to just hear a little bit about, how did you start? It was you and your friends. I know kind of, getting a band together, but how did that kind of?
Okay, so I came home from Japan.
Start?
I had no direction. I was like, what should I do? Oh, maybe I'll go back into acting. So I started to try to get back into acting. I went on a couple of auditions, and the competition. It's so much different when you're a kid and your parents take you there and you're sitting there and you're hanging out with your friends, and then like, okay, I'll be right back, and then you go like, Sunny Delight is delicious, it's so different. When you get older, it's like you're trying out for roles like 90210 or like, dramas, and it's way more competitive. So I came home off this, basically like a mission to try to become a selfless person and care about other people and really like practice what I preach. And then you go right back into Hollywood and everyone, after high school, I'm going to be an actor. So it was like a totally different vibe. And I remember being on an audition and like I'd signed my name in and I was sitting there waiting for them to call me, and it was like, what's going on? And like an hour goes by, 2 hours go by, and I'm like, what? All these people that were kept cycling in, and I just wasn't there. And I went up and looked, and 2 hours later, and someone had erased my name and wrote their name in. So it was that kind of thing. And I was like, I can't do this. This sucks. And so. So I went and I was a tour guide for Japanese tourists. So like tour guide
in
Japanese,
Hollywood?
yeah. And I would take them off the beaten path. I go, this is really where Corey Feldman lives, stuff like that. And that was totally random too. But I was trying to figure out what I was doing with myself. I taught English at a college, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'd spent all my life building up all this unique experience, and now I'm like kind of blowing it. And I think that's something to look at too, as far as your like arc of success, is like, what unique experiences do you have as an individual that you can capitalize on without sounding like super mercenary, but like every one of us have like super unique experiences to our own, whether you think so or not, you do. And so I think that looking back in that, I was like, so anyway, I was like, just for fun, we started a band, and I started playing music with a friend, my buddy Scott and I, who had grew up with in school, and we were doing skateboard videos together as well at the time, and that was another thing I was doing. I was also working in the skateboard industry again, doing skateboard videos from time to time, production, and but it just didn't feel like that was the way to go. So anyway, one night all of our bands were playing together. We had friends in bands, and we just decided to make one big giant band, and we'd call it something stupid. And someone suggested the Aquabats, and that's when the Aquabats was born.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
It just was the dumbest thing we could think of. Like, this was the dumbest idea we could think of. Like, and I was into like. I was really into surf bands around that time, like the early 90s, so like the Ventures and, the Stingrays and like those kind of the bands, know? And so the Aquabats, it seemed like it kind of harkened to like a 60s-ish kind of a vibe. But then a buddy of mine worked at his brother owned a wetsuit factory, and he came to like the show, our first show. We had one practice, and then we played like a party. So we all got together. It was like 12 of us in a room. Like we wrote 3 songs in an hour, and it was like it was awful. But my friend Boyd, he came to the first show, and he's like, "Hey, I made these hats, guys." Okay, so we wore these like rubber Buck Rogers hats, and we all had matching shirts on, and that was basically the birth of the Aquabats. And there's just something about that. I don't know what happened, but we were playing kind of more ska music.
Yeah.
And I think like the band I was in, I'd been in a punk band in high school, and then the band I was in was more of like an indie band, like a Pavement or, like more like a Matador kind of a band. And then my other friends had punk bands, and there was a big ska thing going on in Orange County, like No Doubt and Sublime and Real Big Fish. All those bands were like kind of blowing up in Orange County, and we made this kind of a joke ska band where none of us knew how to play horns or anything, so we just found a bunch of horns, and everyone played different instruments, and it was like it was a mess. Like, it sounded horrible, but it was interesting because the kids in the audience were having a good time and having fun, and it made me think, like, as long as there's a beat, like, it can sound like really bad and people are gonna have fun, you know. And we were having fun too, so I felt like there was something there in the Aquabats, like, oh, there's something here, like. And, you know, slowly but surely we started playing a lot of shows and getting more uniform, creative with our costumes, and then it was all those things, like, as a kid, like from Batman to Ultraman to, you know, the Impossibles, all these things started like coming into play in the Aquabats folklore. You know, people would ask, like, well, why do you guys wear costumes? And then we would make something up, and then that became the like tale of the Aquabats, and we just stick to it. And it was very it wasn't very plotted out. It was real, just kind of a hobby.
Yeah.
You know, but then.
But you didn't even have a CD or anything, right? You just would play, and then.
No, we just play, and because there was 12 guys in the band, so you got 12 guys in a band, and everyone has 2 or 3 friends that want to come watch you play. So we'd come play a little club, whether it would be in LA or Orange County, and 50 people would come, and the promoters would be like, "Whoa, you guys bring people in!" And it was all our friends. Well, you guys can play anytime, and then it kind of started to snowball. And then we also did antics, and to make up for our lack of musicality, we would, you know,
you did little
light ourselves on fire, and like, you know those normal things you do, and pandering to an audience, like, and it was very superhero-y. So I thought, okay, great, it's superheroes, so. We're playing with Sublime next week, and everyone's calling me, dude, can you get me tickets? So I'm like, yeah, I can. Just show up here at a certain time and wear this trash bag with all these rubber bands all over it, and you're going to attack us while we're on stage. So we made up this stage show based on trying to get our friends in for free. Like, we're playing with Fishbone, or we're going to play a show with Primus, you know, and it's like all our friends would call in, so we'd make stuff up for them to do on stage. Like, our friend could juggle, so he'd just be in the corner juggling. And I think our keyboard player, he was a really bad keyboard player, but he used to bring like a griddle to the shows and like flip pancakes while we were playing. Like, just for no reason, and then throw pancakes out in between songs, like, pancakes, you know, and you know, because it was just fun, and we were all music fans, and we weren't taking it very seriously. But because of that, I think because of the like kind of aloof nature, and we weren't like focused on being the best band ever, or like, it was just fun, and that's something everyone can tap into. Is everyone wants to have fun, you know, and. It was very inclusive. Everyone's a part of it, and at the same time, there was this like really hardcore punk scene that was really violent, and then there was this ska scene that was really kind of fun. Like, everyone was having fun, and I grew up in more of the like hardcore scene, but really gravitated towards that after I came back from Japan, the ska thing, because it was just more inclusive. It was more fun, and you know, Aquabats is just. It was never meant to be a serious thing. Yeah. And it still isn't.
Well, so so let's just talk about fun a little bit for a minute, and you know, I worked at Electronic Arts for 4 or 5 years, and my experience is that making fun of all the products I've made or things I've made, making fun, whether that's in a game or anything else, is one of the hardest things you can possibly do. And tell us a little bit about. What is your process of, you know, how do you come up with things that are fun? How do you determine whether or not it's, you know, where on the spectrum it falls? And
well, it's tricky because fun is kind of subjective. Like, oh, I don't think that's fun. You know, it's like, you know, rollerblading, that doesn't look fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's subjective to like what's cool or what's not cool, or what your opinion are. And so I think. In finding fun, you have to build on common ground. You have to build on a common ground of fun. Like, what does everyone think is fun? You know, what can everyone do together that's fun? And that you're right. That is kind of tricky. It is kind of hard. And I think not that I know any better than anyone else how to make fun. But I think it starts with maybe this sounds so like esoteric maybe, but it's maybe like your position in the universe, like realizing like how tiny you are and being able to make fun of yourself a little bit. That's where it starts. And that's, you can create fun if you know that you're ridiculous. Like you yourself are pretty insignificant and pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
And at the same time, having that attitude can launch you into so many great things, like being able to accept that, okay, I can make a difference, or I could be totally insignificant. And like knowing like you probably are insignificant, but you want to make a difference. You just want to do something different.
Yeah.
And I think that it sounds really confusing, but it sounded good when I was thinking about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But so in making fun, like, I think it's easy to point at something else and say that's stupid, or that. It just depends on the positive or negative of the fun. Like if it's positive fun and it's inclusive and it's everyone's involved, then I think that's easy. It's like it's comedy, like some of the great comedians. Everyone can laugh at them regardless of what walk of life you're from, what culture you're involved with. Like I think that kind of self-deprecating acceptance that you're not really that significant,
that big a deal, yeah,
makes you really big.
Yeah.
Like you look at all the biggest comedians, like
they're constantly just making fun of
they
themselves.
make fun of
the time.
themselves like all the time, and but at the same time they're really sharp at making fun of other people too.
Yeah.
So,
well, what are your metrics of like how do you test something? How do you test that you're on the right path? Like you said, like I may think it's funny, or that person may not think it's funny, but how do you how do you test? How do you know? Okay, I've reached this point of, this is kind of generally funny, or this is kind of generally.
Well, it helps to have a committee. Like it helps to have a committee. Like being in a band and like doing something together, it helps to be able to bounce things off people. Like whether you're writing a script or and this is just my opinion. Like some people like to take their ideas and go into a closet and like write them, and then here it is, my birthday cake or whatever. Like, but I would rather like find the best thing that bounces off everybody in the room. And every show we love, it's all a room full of writers, and everyone like yes. It's the yes and principle, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but like comedians have an exercise. It's called yes and like you're improvising. So say let's improvise like. You say something to me, and then I would agree with you, like yes, and so like the sky is blue, and then you would say like yes, and it looks like it might rain, and then I would say yes, and oh man, I can't. If it rains, my jacket's gonna be ruined. You're just building on that, and instead of going like, it looks like the sky is blue. No, it's not.
No, that's dumb.
Yeah, that ends it, and that goes back to the whole like. Subjective nature of fun. Like, nope, I don't like it. Then okay, that's over. That's done. But if you can yes and in whatever you do, if you can build on it, then you've got something good.
Yeah.
Like whether that's with a writing partner or a friend, and that's something I just learned this last year. I don't know if you're familiar with Matt Walsh from the Upright Citizens Brigade. They have Upright Citizens Brigade. He came down and taught the Aquabats like some last minute acting skills before we started shooting our show, and it made so much sense. Like you build, if you can, yes and it becomes funnier and funnier and funnier. But the minute you take it to a negative spot, it's just over. It doesn't matter. And like even if the negative thing you said was funny or whatever, like no, shut up, like ha ha ha, unexpected, but then your skit's over. Like that's something that's a good measure of knowing that something's working. And when I think with the Aquabats, it was not only the band as a committee, but it was the audience. The audience was saying yes and to us. So we would come out with a song, and there's a response, and that's with music. Like you're a musician and you're playing something and you're connecting with the audience and they're responding and they like it, and then you're reacting to that, like, oh, you want to hear another solo, like, or whatever it is,
right.
like, or you want me to sing that high note again, like Mariah Carey? You want me to go up there again? All right. But I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a good barometer for if something is working or you're going the right way. Is if you can get a natural yes and from somebody you're in connection or connected to.
So I think we got about 20 minutes left.
Sorry.
No, you're great. This is great. But I want to talk to you about let's talk about Yo Gabba Gabba. And you start this production company with your friend Scott, right?
Yeah, Scott.
Yeah, you start with Scott in the in '99, and you start kind of developing your own IP, right? You've got
real quick. So the Aquabats, we were this band of crazy dudes, and we wear costumes and we play music and we fight monsters on stage, and all the monsters are our friends because we're getting them in for free and we're using review. And we create this cult following, and at that point, I said, I grew up in the industry. This is it. That's it. Let's make a TV show out of this band. Like, okay, I can act and I know how to shoot cameras. I've been shooting skateboard videos forever. We could make this thing. And I thought, slam dunk, this is going to happen. So this was about 1997, 1998. Okay. And right away, we had a friend that was friends with Bobcat Goldthwait, and we started like hanging with Bobcat a little bit, and we started developing a show with him, and we pitched it to Disney. We got a deal with Disney, and we did a development deal. Anyway, long story short, we had a deal with Disney. We had a deal with Fox. We had a deal with Cartoon Network. We had all these deals. Oh, and it would like go, and then they'd be like, no, and they'd be like, oh, no. It was like more rejection, just more rejection. But it was one of those things like where you're getting so much positivity from something you're doing, and it's like. Now it's starting to span a generation. Like now there's like people that used to come watch us play when they were in high school, and now they're bringing their kids to watch us play, and it's like some people would be deterred by that, like, oh man, I'm a loser, like move on. But the fact that it was still yielding a positive yes and, I was like, okay, all we need to do is get this into the right place and it's gonna work because I'm getting the vibe.
You're getting good feedback on
it.
Yeah.
And it's not stopping. It's not like a band that was popular and then they had their generation and then they grew old with them. So now they're playing a tiny bar and it's the same core people and they're the same age. Because you see that with bands and stuff too, right? Like I was really into this band in high school.
Journey or something.
Yeah, or even on a like bigger scale, like something like Leonard Skinner. Like that doesn't touch the hearts of the youth. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like 60-year-old hippies just going like, yeah, free bird, and it's like, it's kind of over. You know what I'm saying? But we were seeing that it was like reconnecting with younger kids. And no offense, Leonard Skinner.
No.
But you know what I'm saying?
Well, he was a
huge.
fan too.
They're
he
huge.
was a big Star of Grind guy.
I like
before.
Leonard Skinner, yeah. But you know, anyway, I'm generalizing. Forgive me. But so I still really believed in this thing, the Aquabats, and at some point. I was working 2 jobs, trying to play shows on the weekend. It was really stupid. And I think even Adam Carolla one time even said, like, I was listening to Loveline on my way to my job where I drove a forklift in a warehouse doing Christmas gift baskets, you know. And he was like, because Travis Barker was in our band from Blink-182. I don't know if you know that. Travis
drummer,
Barker,
yeah, sure.
Super,
did the reality show,
mega superstar.
Yeah.
Travis, was in our band first, so he was wearing dumb costumes and acting like a fool before he became a giant rock star. And he's a rad guy. I like Travis a lot, but I think the Aquabats looked like they were just done. And this was like early 2001, 2002, and I was driving to work one night, and Adam Carolla was saying to another band, he's like, you know what? Whenever I see something that fails, I file it in the A file, A for the Aquabats. Because there was a band that looked like it was going to do something, and they suck. And I was like, I had 2 kids, and we were managing apartments, and we were pretty poor, and I'm driving to get to my forklift to work all night, and I was like, that SOB. But I was still getting those positive results, and stuff like that. It's got to drive you, like. If you believe in something and people are going to pee on it. Sorry, my kids are. People are going to put you down for something you know in your mind is going to work. That's got to drive you. It can't hold you back. Like you just got to go for it. And so it took another 10 years, but so anyway, that was one of those like milestone moments where I was like, okay, I'm not going to give up on this idea.
Yeah, you're not going to let Adam get the best of you.
Right, and we had to deal with Fox at that moment, and a couple months later, it was done. They didn't want anything to do with it. So I started thinking about it, and one day I was watching television with my daughter. She was 2 at the time, and we were watching kids shows, and every time like Barney would come on, I would turn the channel really quick, and because I wasn't going to let her watch that, like, because it drive me crazy, you know. And we watched Sesame Street and all the shows, and then I just started watching like the Wiggles and some of these other things, and thinking about my opportunities that we had with the Aquabats, like the Wiggles, that could have been us, you know, it could have been the Aquabats, and like, and it just kind of hit me as we were turning the channels. I think I channeled past MTV, and I think it was 50 Cent, like. That song, his first big
in the club.
In the club, it was in the club. Wow! And I channeled past it, and I stopped for a second, and I noticed my daughter. She was just playing with her ponies or whatever on the ground. And when that beat dropped, she stopped what she was doing, and she looked at the TV. And then, of course, it was like something like this was going on, and I had to turn the channel, like, whoa, hey! But then I went around the horn again because you know I'm a man, and that's what men do.
Oh, yeah. Quickly as you can.
So we went around the horn again and got to MTV, and there it was again in the club, and my daughter stopped what she was doing, and she was like, because the beat. Yeah. And then I was like, whoa. And it was like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know, like he like jumps out and like starts making the Devil's Tower out of like mashed potatoes and stuff. Like, so I started breaking out like my old hip hop records, like LA Dream Team and like Debbie Deb and all that, you know, the 80s dance music. And I started playing stuff for my daughter, and she was like totally into it. She liked it because it was that like simple beat, like the simple repetitive beat. And I noticed that was something that was lacking in kid shows, was like good music. And not that like a piano and an acoustic guitar are bad music, but it just felt like there was nothing that really spoke to our generation that grew up in the like late 70s, 80s, during punk rock, during hip hop. There was nothing like that being presented to our kids. And so I got on the phone with Scott. And Scott, I got an idea, dude. Let's do this. And I got together, and it's like, it's, you know, we're going to use old school hip hop beats, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And Scott was like, yeah. And Scott was like, and we could get Biz Marquee on the show, and he could, you know, do the Biz Dance, which was like one of his songs, you know, like put your hands behind you, like, well, yeah, that's it. So we just got this crazy idea.
Well, a lot of those characters, you guys, I mean, you had similar versions of them in the Aquabat stuff.
Yeah,
like
and that was the other
videos and all sorts of things.
So we had built some of the costumes, like Muno, the big red cyclops who you see on the Kia commercials. Like, he was a character that I had been drawing since high school, and we built a couple versions of him for the Aquabats. So he would come out on stage and like knock us over while we're playing, you know, Travis Barker's playing a beat, and he'd come and kick him in the face and like knock his drums over, and like,
why did he leave again?
I know exactly. Why would he not want to leave on the show? I remember we were on the Magic Johnson show, the short-lived Magic Johnson show.
Really?
That was like our one claim to fame. Like, the Aquabats were on TV, the Magic Johnson show, and Travis was, because when Travis played, he didn't ever want to wear the goggles. Because he's like, I can't see what I'm doing when I'm wearing the goggles. But we all knew it was because he was like checking girls out in the audience, you know? And he couldn't see them if he had the goggles on. And we were on the Magic show. He's like, dude, I can't play with the goggles on. And
that was the breaking point.
Yeah, that was one of the breaking points. They're like, come on, dude. He's like, I'm gonna be on TV with those dumb goggles on. I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Because it's whack. Is why you don't want to do it, because it's totally whack. But anyway, I digress. So Yo Gabba really sprung out of like that, you know, one of those moments that happened, and we'd been thinking about doing something that was like a little different for our kids anyway, and we were thinking about the Aquabats, but that was a big shift. It was a big shift. It was like, it really started with music, and it started with something for our kids. So if kids are going to respond to that music that way, you put in life lessons and how to treat how to treat your neighbor and how to eat your vegetables. You put in all those lessons you want to teach your kids, and put them over cool music, and it's simple. It's a simple idea, but it came from our more of our generation. So the influences in the art, in the music, everything was coming from that generation. So there's skateboarding, and there's like graffiti influences in the show, and stuff that you wouldn't really like think about putting in a little kid's show.
Yeah.
But it's very relevant to their parents. The parents that are watching this is like, whoa, this is like something I watched when I was a kid. And the Sid and Marty Krofft, obviously, like the inspiration, and Pee-wee's Playhouse, and all that stuff that we grew up watching. You just put it back into Yo Gabba. It sounds a lot more easy than it was, but we knew that going through the network system with Yo Gabba was going to be a bad idea. So because we tried it with the Aquabats, and it was just like we'd get to that moment where it was green light or red light, and it was always red light. And we also realized that we dodged a bullet in a lot of ways, because a lot of times when you develop something with a network or something, and they pay you money, so luckily we had the band to back us up. So if we would have come to Disney, let's say, with the Aquabats as an idea, and we weren't already a band, then they would have
want some of the IP.
Well, they would have owned the IP, and it would have gone away. But because we had already created as a band, and we'd sold T-shirts, we were able to kind of like escape once the deals were done, which we were super lucky that because we had no idea that that's the way it works, but that's the way it works. So we knew that we had to go independent with Yo Gabba Gabba, and we started pitching people that we knew had money, or I know this taking too much time,
awesome.
but I think the South Park guys had done it that way. They did an independent short, and then it got on TV, and that's what we were thinking, like, let's do this independently, and totally thinking like punk rock DIY, like we don't need a studio, we can do this ourselves. And then right around that same time, YouTube happened. So it was like everything came together like really swell. And so we pitched a couple people this little demo that we shot, and they were like, you guys are crazy, what are you smoking? Which is always a question we get a lot too, but
But you don't smoke.
It might be residue, but there's some like some pores in my brain that haven't released yet. But still, like we just thought, like, let's do this independently. So we got one of our friends from high school that went to business school, and we got our inner circle together. That was a strong team. And we went and made 2 episodes of Yo Gabba Gabba for, it was like $125,000.
Wow.
Which is pretty cheap for 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And got the costumes made ourselves, did all the music. Somehow Biz Markie was in town, and through MySpace we got a hold of Biz Markie, and things really lined up. It was like the magic lined up. And it was just one of those things, like rejection. At some point, the ducks have to line up, and they for Gabba, it was insane. So we shot the pilot, and in our naivete, we sent out the pilot to all the networks, and a month later, we were like, they're not calling us back. Fools! When we're not realizing that they have like a stack of like submissions on their desks, and we're just another submission. And so we're like, okay, we're going to go plan B, grassroots internet marketing. And we just put up the trailer on YouTube, and one of our friends caught a hold of it, and then it went this way and this way, and then just went whew. And all the blogs picked it up, and then a friend of our friends is friends with Jared Hess, who did Napoleon Dynamite.
Sure.
And then he was working on Nacho Libre at the time, and he showed it to Nickelodeon. And then within like a month and a half, we had meetings with all the top networks. And we ended up going with Nickelodeon, which was they're great people, and Brown Johnson, who they talk about her in The Tipping Point, in the part we're talking about Blue's Clues. She's a super genius, and she's just like, we love your show, we want to license the show, we don't want to acquire it. And we were like, no, please acquire. We'll license it. And she said, we want to license it because I don't want our network to screw with the creativity of the show. We were like, what? Wow. Okay, yes. So, I mean, that was awesome. And so, and the show has been doing great, and I feel like it achieved its objective, and that was to become a more of a refreshing feeling preschool show.
Yeah.
You know, and then from there, you get the like, what do you got next? And so we're like, we got this Aquabats thing. So then that's another hour-long conversation how that happened. But we're on the Hub now, which is Hasbro and Discovery Channel made a channel called the Hub, and it's Transformers, G.I. Joe, and the Aquabats, a garage band of
and Care Bears,
of
right?
hack musicians that like somehow got their own TV show. So.